Welcome to Life in the Red States, where we try to restore common sense in these senseless times. I would like to introduce your host, Michael Stickler. Mike is a best-selling author, philanthropist, and highly sought-after conference speaker. He has a great show for us today.
I'm Mike Stickler, and this is Life in the Red States, and I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the things that I've been seeing going on that is a little bit troublesome to me over these last few months and really over the last few years. And that's the idea of the government using federal law enforcement to put down disagreements. Now, I know we've all been watching the news and thinking about everything from the January 6th insurrection to currently the Kyle Rittenhouse trial has been publicized and been aired on many channels, to what happened with the Bundys in both federal cases, to even last year under the Trump administration and Paul Manafort and Roger Stone, all being pulled under the weight, if you will, of the federal government's law enforcement and the Department of Justice. Now, I'll be quick to realize or quick to say that the Kyle Rittenhouse case is under the state prosecution, but there's a trend that's happening where people who are protesting against the government or practicing, like in Kyle Rittenhouse's case, his right under the Second Amendment, or the infiltration that's happening with federal agencies in not only just to investigate crimes, but also to implement people in crimes and implement the crime itself. There's a lot of things going on in our society right now that's extremely challenging. Now, in my own life, I was asleep like so many others. I was asleep not realizing that this was going on until the government turned their attention on me. And in my case, they falsely accused me because of media stories. Then they got charges set against me and falsely convicted me through my trial, and then falsely imprisoned me through my trial. And then I saw it even more clearly as I researched the book Clive and Bundy, American Patriot, and I really could see how the government, it's a practice what they're doing to incarcerate and to crush dissent. There's a practice here. And then I saw it even more during the Trump administration with what they did with Roger Stone, what they did to Roger Stone, Paul Manafort, leaving a man in solitary confinement for months and months on end when he hadn't even gone to trial yet. He hadn't been convicted yet. See, these are patterns that they do. Now, most of you all know I'm a pretty, I've got a lot of experience, over 20 years of experience with the justice system and prison systems. I worked for Prison Fellowship for a number of years and did prison ministry and aftercare ministry. I ran an award-winning aftercare facility. Just lots of things I understand, but I didn't really grab a hold of or see really, and it's really been more than 20 years, it's been more like 25 years, really didn't see what's going on in the clarity I do now. And it's even more aggravating as I see the January 6th protesters, which are called the insurrectionists, or white supremacists, or domestic terrorists. Any reasonable thinking person who looks at the videos from that day is going to break that protest up into basically three groups. Group number one are agitators. What their motive is and where they came from is yet to be understood. And that was a very small group, maybe 50 people. Group number two are enthusiastic. So they followed the agitators pretty easily. And then group number 3, which is by far the largest group, were a group of people who were just encouraged to come on in and into the Capitol, and they did. But there was never, and I can see, I've had conversations with friends and whatnot about, they actually said to me, some of my friends and relatives said, I could have been in that third group real easily. I could have just seen, oh, the doors were open, let's go in. And now 500 people have been rounded up, put in jail, in holding, many of them put in solitary confinement. The justice system says, oh, well, it's for their protection. No, trust me, in every facility, there is a light security or minimum security, either dorm or cell block, where there's no security issues to be concerned with in there. So that's not the problem. White collar criminals are there, low level nonviolent offenders are there, and these people could be there too. But no, they're putting them in solitary confinement for months and months. And the reason why they're doing that is because what they want to do, what the government's trying to do, is wear these people down so they'll take a plea bargain. That's what's happening. And if you don't take a plea bargain, you'll get what the defense attorneys call the trial penalty. So if you go to trial, you'll end up getting 5 or 3 or 5 or 10 times the amount of time that you would have got if you had taken the plea bargain. In other words, if they offered you a year, you could get 10 years now for the same crime, for the same accusation. And yet, because you wanted to exercise your constitutional rights, they're going to now penalize you 10 times over that. The justice system is really deeply broken, and it's now focusing on its citizens. They have weaponized, there's no doubt about it, they've weaponized law enforcement, and the states are starting to use it too. And so we have to think about how we can change the way the whole justice system works. Now, you hear a lot of conversation, especially during the Trump era, of prison reform. And it was happening before. I mean, Donald Trump was talking about, Barack Obama was talking about, prison reform. And even George Bush, the junior, he tried to do some things through his faith-based initiatives. And there's a long story behind that. Because again, I've been working in and around the prison system for well over 20 years, helping men and women get out and restore their lives. And so there's something, though, that's been going on in these last few years where there's been a real weaponization of law enforcement and the justice system against its citizens that they don't agree with. They've literally become political prisoners. And it's quite frightening what happens. So I'm not really for prison reform, though prison reform falls under the justice system, and there's definitely some reforms that need to happen in prison. There's no doubt about it. But I'm talking about justice reform from the sentencing guidelines to the indictment policies, how you get indicted. There's an old saying by I've forgotten, but he was one of the Supreme Court justices. He said, it's very easy to indict someone in America. In fact, you can indict a ham sandwich. And it's really true. It's just not difficult. The indictment process, most people don't understand, but the grand jury is hired and supports the prosecution. When you get indicted and it goes before a grand jury, the defense and the target don't even have an opportunity to go in and present an alternate side to what the accusation is. So it's one-sided when the grand jury hears it, and they're working for the prosecution. So no doubt they're going to go ahead and put a bill forward to go ahead and prosecute that individual. And once you do, everything falls apart. You've got to come up with money. They start seizing your assets. All kinds of things just start to unravel very quickly. That's what's happening to the January 6th folks. It's what's happening in the Kyle Rittenhouse case. and more and more. And there's others that are going on underneath the radar that we don't all see. And so we don't just need prison reform. That's part of it. We need a justice system reform where there's a much more protection in bringing people into the system and then destroying their lives with it, bankrupting them, destroying their reputations, destroying everything about it, and then going, oh. And if you're not sure about that, all you have to do is look at Ammon Bundy, Cliven Bundy, and the rest of the Bundy group. The things that people still say things, lie, just flatly lie about what happened. And the reason they flatly lie is because there's been a media narrative that was distorted about actually what happened with the Bundys. It's amazing. And their reputation is destroyed behind that. It will never recover. You say it enough times, it becomes truth, even though it was clear that there was prosecutorial misconduct, and finally Judge Navarro saw it. They were released from it. The damage was done. The finances were done. And I'm proud of the Bundys in how they've rallied, and that Ammon's running for governor, Ryan ran for governor here in Nevada. Cliven's down there, running his ranch. I'm just very glad, I'm very proud of them and how they've really just bounced back from the whole thing all these years later. Also this week, just in regards to the Bundy conversation, Jerry DeLemus was released after pleading guilty. He was finally released from prison this week, and he's home with his wife in New Hampshire. I'm very happy for him. And there's only one now of the Bundy 19 still incarcerated. And so we got to keep praying and working towards his release as well. And then we have to work and figuring out how to change this. So I encourage you to start to put some pressure on your congressmen, on your senators, on your state representatives, and start opening up the conversation about justice reform, not just prison reform, but justice reform. The idea about prison reform is really, it's a pressure on their budgets, and they also recognize the recidivism rate has remained, as long as I've been alive, the recidivism rate's always been at about 80%. That means 80% of the people that go to prison go back. They end up doing life on the installment plan. And so the states have been trying to figure out ways to resolve that. And the federal government has tried to figure out ways to resolve some of the pressures that they feel from the prison systems. But that's the end of the continuum. We need to fix it from the beginning of the continuum. We need to start. Many of us have heard that the statistics, well, the whole system's racist because more people of color go to prison than white people. Well, I'm from a state here in Nevada. I was incarcerated in a state here in Nevada where 4 times the amount of people that are locked up are people of color, primarily Black, than they are white. If you go in the system, it's not very hard to figure that out real quickly. But yet most of those folks that have been incarcerated are from Las Vegas. That's where the largest African-American population is here in Nevada. And most of those people who have been into the system, get plugged into the system like that, is because of a cultural breakdown that's happening in and around Las Vegas. And there's no doubt about it. There's no argument to that. So it's not really a system of race. It's a system that's broken down. And the truth is there's crimes being committed in the Black community, and the people that are calling law enforcement, calling the police, are Black people. So it's not that the cops are driving around picking up Black people because they want to. It's because the calls for service are coming from the Black community into the Black community to do law enforcement in the Black community. And then the beginning of the continuum starts to where the result in the prison system is you have a lot more people of color than you do white people there. Well, we have to start really realizing that this isn't a whole cultural problem that we have here in the United States. It's not just in Nevada, it's in every state of the union. And until we wake up and start to recognize this is the challenge that we're faced with, it's never going to change. And there's going to be all this finger pointing because you're seeing people coming out the end of the continuum with all kinds of problems and challenges. And most men and women who get incarcerated end up going back and back and back because they end up doing the life on the installment plan. Because now, even if they've made real big efforts to try to change their lives and to do better and not commit crimes and to try to live their own lives, they become the attention of the media and they become the attention of law enforcement and the government. So there's a lot to understand about how this all works. Now, some of this I recognize may not be setting well with you. You might be going, oh, Mike, that's not true. I remember having a debate with a guy in a church not long ago. Well, actually, it was a couple of years ago now, many years ago now that I'm thinking about it. And the argument was about incarceration, or the debate was, and I had people walk up to me and said, Mike, you have really good points, but I don't care. We just need to throw them in prison and throw away the key. Well, that obviously isn't the answer, and most people aren't going to spend most of their lives in prison. So what do we do about it? So we have to face the fact that we have an incarceration problem in the United States, and really a justice problem in the United States. And that justice system's being turned now, weaponized onto people that are regular citizens. And it's getting dangerously frightening what's going on. And we, the citizens, are going to have to do something. So all of us ghost patriots out there need to start to really understand. Don't read the rhetoric, read the understanding of what's happening in our justice system. It's not going on. It is not being transacted like we all learned in high school. Okay. It's not working that way anymore. And we need to recognize why it's working so poorly, and then start to make some changes and at least get the conversation going that we need justice reform, not just prison reform. And again, I know that some of this doesn't set well with you, and I recognize that. So make your comments down below. I'd be happy to engage you with those. Please be sure to like this page and to share it with your friends so that we can stimulate more and more conversation with all the ghost patriots that are out there. And until next time, may God bless you in this wonderful day.
Mike, what a great show. I want to thank you for joining us today. Life in the Red States is dedicated to giving a voice to the heart of this nation. Please follow this page on your social media and share it with your friends. If you would like to learn more about additional programming and resources, check out our website, lifeintheredstates.com.